Yeah. So you want to talk about the eclipse? What do you want to talk about?
I mean, this was a magical 48 hours to be in Austin.
Yeah.
Between the eclipse and those storms yesterday. Mm-hmm. God, that was great.
Did you get a lot of hail, Heaton?
A little bit. Like it was, I was out. A friend came over. She wanted to socialize her dog by bringing him to meet Wallace, who Wallace like views other dogs at best as like coworkers he tolerates. So not a huge upswing. But we were out in the yard and like just heard plinking noises. So there was a little bit of hail, but not a whole lot, I don't think.
I think you got the most out of the three of us.
Yeah, we heard some thuds.
Yeah.
Some hail thuds. But it was good. Yeah, just the way that the lightning was going crazy. I'm like, I know that Jen is digging this the absolute most. I just texted her. I'm like this has got to be the best. And she's like, I'm in heaven.
It's true. Yeah, between the eclipse, which was truly magical. Like, I was kind of excited to see it, but I was like, it's going to get dark for a few seconds. Who cares? But just the way that Brian, because we went to our friend Brian Brushwood's Founders Day event, he did such a good job because they had a live performer of the Dark Side on the Moon, and then Here Comes the Sun after the eclipse. I thought that was really funny. But it was interesting, the reaction of all the humans, because we all got really quiet, and just experiencing that with a few hundred other people. It was amazing. Like, in the fact that it got that dark, I wasn't expecting it to get that dark.
Because every previous eclipse I've seen, it's like what's neat for me is the lighting changes. Because like in the rare instance where I somehow am awake during sunrise, Justin, this is your field.
Yeah,
it's kind of bluish light, if I'm not mistaken. Whereas like sunset's kind of orangish light. So there are chromatic distinctions on either end of the spectrum. But when there's an eclipse, it just goes grayscale. It's this really weird thing where it gets darker, but there's no hue variation to it. It's like a minor version of Under the Black Sun of Geddes Prime and Dune 2. Like, it's just this weird, like, CCTV lighting. And it was that, only it got intense and then just black.
Yeah.
And like, 3 minutes of like nighttime darkness, which was super cool.
Yeah. And then the clouds broke for us to get maybe 3 seconds of seeing it.
But you want to know what? Like,
but it was perfect
it was
that
exactly.
way.
Yeah, no, everybody like screaming, like when we saw it. That was
the cheer.
I could not have had a better time.
Yeah, it was a perfect day. I just loved it.
And especially just being surrounded by so many, just my favorite people. Like it was just so great. We had people from out of the country that showed up.
Yeah.
Like there was
an Australian delegation. There was a surprising amount of people from Chicago.
A lot of Chicago.
Yeah, a lot of Chicago.
Yeah.
And I like it too because like I get to be like minor cast of characters at these Brian events where I show up and people are aware of who I am, and like I now get to know them where I'm like, oh, I remember you from last year, or like 2 years ago, and like actually now have like kind of a rapport with people, which is cool.
There is an element of a Disney character brunch, like that I've long realized that whenever we go to a Founders Day event specifically, Brian is Mickey, Bonnie is Minnie. I am Donald, and Ashley is Daisy, and we are all like a character brunch. We walk around, and people say, "Oh my God, I remember," and then we have a good conversation. Sometimes people come to a lot of character brunches, so you see the same faces over and over again. But you guys, newer. I don't know if you're ready to be Elsa, but it's close. It is. There was definitely a contingent for everybody that does podcasting in our little sphere.
Well, in the lunch line, I made a joke that only makes sense if you know who I am. And it was about a guy, his t-shirt said, "Politics make me horny."
Yeah.
And I said, that's right up my alley. And I'm like, if you don't really know who I am, like, that's kind of a weird joke to say. So I asked him, but it was across a buffet line. I was like, do you know who I am? And then everyone starts to nod. And he's like, in this atmosphere, Jen, everyone knows who you are. You need to get used to that. Yeah. I was like, I'm not used to that at all. And then I was very self-conscious as I was eating those tacos, and I had meat hanging out of my face, and I was like, who's watching me eat like an animal? But yeah, but people came up to me the whole time. They were so nice. A few people told me that they had seen me before, but were too nervous to say hi, and I just want to put it out there.
That'll happen.
Do not be nervous to say hi to me. I love it when people say hi.
I've had to train audiences on that because like for a while like I was getting emails, like literally I would get emails like, hey, I think I saw you on a date, but I didn't want to bother you. And I'm like, God damn it. If you see me talking to a woman, come up and tell me how awesome I am in front of the woman. Like, I routinely, when Abby and I went to, the Renaissance Fair in Texas, and like some guy came up and I was like, shut the fuck up. My girlfriend's going to be here in a minute. When she comes, just repeat this whole fucking thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this did the whole thing. And Abby was kind of weirded out because he's not a good actor. So he was going, hi, Andrew Heaton, I am a fan of yours. And I'm like, yeah. Look at this. Check this out.
This is my as somebody who has gotten approached and somebody who does like to respect the time of people for whom I admire, you cannot go wrong with the drive-by. Drive-by, hey, man, just wanted to say, huge fan, love your work. Maybe one thing that, really love the blank. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you initiate the walk away, that's the fastest way to get pulled back in if the person has time to get pulled back in and have a larger conversation. The fastest way to have a conversation end awkwardly is just to continue talking until eventually somebody has to walk away. Mm-hmm. But the drive-by, oh boy, I cannot say that. I got
the one
better.
to don't do. I'll get emails. I do funny stuff with Reason. Whenever I'm at Reason, I go play board games with the Bragg brothers, and sometimes our buddy Rob Rafferty, who's not with Reason, comes out, and our friend Remy. Remy's a very funny, very talented musical parodist that I've known for a decade now. And people will come up and go like, hey, could you put me in contact with Remy? And I'm like, why don't you just fucking reach out to Remy? I'm not going to be your middleman guy I just met.
Yeah, that's awkward if it's not in a business context. If it's not like, hey, I give out free money. Could you put me in contact with somebody else I give free money to? Yeah, that's a weird one. But then again, that's also a sign that people are really, really familiar. And also anybody that does a lot of stuff together or in their mind is underneath the brand, just assumes that you all live in a Brady Bunch house.
Right. Which would be great. I would be all in favor of that. Yeah.
I actually believe you. You keep talking about
having
a commune.
At some point in my life, at the very least, I will live in a cool old folks home. But before then, when I'm still really limber, would love to live in a commune for some period of time. Just check it out.
What do you think it would center around?
Wallace.
Usually communes have they center around something, even if it's just world peace or
maybe
meditation.
I've been to a couple of them, and the ones that I've been to so far were just people that wanted to live in a more social environment, which is what I'd like to do. So world peace sounds fine. Sure, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
There we go. Put it in Latin on the side on the way.
Yeah.
World peace. Yeah,
Opum
sure.
pacifist
Fine, whatever.
globum or whatever. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm sure our little commune will make a difference in that regard. Yes.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
I'm Andrew Heaton.
I'm Jennifer Briney.
And we're not wrong. On this edition of the program, we're going to be talking about the ever-evolving FISA debate, which is changing even as we are recording this on Wednesday, as well as networks, both cable and broadcast, banding together so they can beg Joe Biden to participate in debates this fall. That and your emails. Anything else aside from the eclipse and the storm? It has been pretty good. Been a pretty crazy week.
Amazing.
It still feels like Tuesday. Whenever there's a Monday off, it just screws me up.
I've only been eating desserts on weekends, but yesterday felt like a weekend, so now I'm all laden, or no, not yesterday, Tuesday. Monday. So I'm all laden with sugar and like brain fog and shit.
Yeah. I was gonna have a cookie, and then I didn't, and I'm really proud of myself.
Hey.
I know. Go me.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I ate all the cookies and a few brownies.
Yeah, that was a good snack.
And I have not worked out on either Monday or Tuesday. So I got on the scale today and I was just like, good Lord.
Where were those tacos from? Because they were delicious.
Torchy's.
Okay. That makes sense.
Torchy's is great. I love Torchy's.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. No, Torchy's is, an Austin original. The locals will say, there was a time that it was better. But
do we know which one is the original one?
I mean,
The
we
mists
know,
of time, no one knows.
We know, but I don't know off the top.
And I do think it tastes better here because I was so excited when Tulsa got one when I was living in Tulsa, and then I went there and was like, like it. I don't know. There was something different in the quality.
I don't think it's as good when I get it to go. It's better when it's fresh. But otherwise, I really enjoyed it.
I think it was great in the catering because it was just a bunch of the like meat and fixins that were just kind of stewing together.
Yeah.
And so like that's good.
I didn't know that they had fake meat, and so I made it all the way down the buffet line. I was going to have 3 tacos, so I did steak and then chicken, and I got to that, and I'm glad I asked the lady, and she told me it was fake meat, and I was like, oh, excuse me, I need to go back for more steak now. And I
The
went
fake meat's
back
good
through
though. The
line.
FOMO, it's good.
Nope,
No, okay.
just not doing it.
Have you tried it?
No thanks.
Okay, I'm just maybe
go.
maybe you'd be
She's advertising for her Daily Wire podcast.
Yep.
Fuck the vegans. Jen Briney is here to tell truths.
I just know it's really processed, and I'm not interested. If I'm gonna eat something that tastes like meat, I'll have meat. Thanks.
Last year, I was like psyching myself up to go vegetarian for a month because I'll do like month-long experiments, and I wanted to see how do I feel if I just don't eat meat for a month. And I was having a conversation with a friend, and she went, "You literally did that last month." And I was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, but because it's so easy in Austin, it's so easy to eat vegetarian food here that it didn't even have there was no friction for me whatsoever." And also the vegetarian food's really good because I think they got to work for it. Like vegetarian food, if you get vegetarian tacos, they actually have to make them taste good. They can't just slap meat on it because meat is inherently tasty. So they have to make it work.
That's, as somebody who's eaten a lot of vegan food as a omnivore, the one thing that defines really good vegan food is that they can't fuck up on seasoning. The seasoning needs to be really, really good. Otherwise, it just tastes like shit. And even vegans can be like, this is not great. Not great. Let's get into our meat. The Republican Party is currently embroiled in a contentious debate over the reauthorization of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, reflecting deep ideological divides and uncertainty about the party's direction. Section 702 specifically permits the intelligence community to collect and examine communications of foreign targets without a warrant, a capability that has become a point of contention, especially given some Republicans' mistrust of the FBI, rooted in its investigation into Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. Skepticism has fueled disagreements within the party about how to approach this policy. The internal conflict is, of course, complicated by efforts of House Speaker Mike Johnson to navigate the party's differing views and achieve consensus on how to modify or restrain this section, particularly concerning the surveillance of Americans' data collected without a warrant. Many critics of 702 say that although it does spell out that they can only warrantless wiretap foreign actors in foreign countries, it is fairly easy to loophole that way into wiretapping Americans in America. But as the April 19th reauthorization deadline approaches, Johnson is attempting to broker a compromise that satisfies both the national security imperatives and the demands for increased privacy protections, a truce that might have come screaming to a halt this morning as the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, on his Truth Social platform said, "Kill FISA. It was used to spy on my campaign."
Which it was.
Yeah.
Which it was.
Yeah.
That is Trump speaking the truth.
To Trump's credit, that did happen. Yes.
So, should Congress reauthorize FISA 702, Briney?
No. Bye. No, I mean, I think we should go back in the Wayback Machine and remember where FISA 702 even came from. It was because the George W. Bush administration after 9/11 was doing all kinds of illegal spying on us. They essentially, I'll never forget the whistleblower, Mark Klein was his name, worked for AT&T. They installed things called splitter cabinets all over the country that essentially took everything that went over AT&T's wires and split it and had it just go total copies over to the NSA where they just were storing everybody's data. And they had these, essentially just the way I understand the way the data worked is if you had these in these like 7 or 8 specific locations, you were able to collect pretty much everything that went over the internet. They built these massive data storage centers. There was one that was like as big as a city in Utah. And that's what they were doing. It was completely illegal. And so to basically retroactively make what they did legal, that's how we got 702 in the first place. And so it was always covering up illegality of the George W. Bush administration and has been controversial ever since. And so here we are, like flash forward into the 2020s. And, you know, the FBI, so the USA Freedom Act, I want to say this was like 2015, made some changes to it. So instead of the government collecting and storing all our data, they basically privatized the storage of it, giving private companies immunity if they turn over information to the government, immunity and payment, of course. And every time the government makes one of these requests of the private companies, the companies are prohibited from telling the public this. So they changed the system, they changed the storage, but the storage is still happening. And so as they are wiretapping these foreigners, they just have this incidental data on Americans that's allowed to be stored for 2 years. And in 2020 and 2021, the FBI misused, is the word they use for it, misused that information nearly 280,000 times. And so the idea...
On a scale from 1 to 10, where would that be?
It's not great.
280,000, it turns out.
Yep, 280,000 times. And then we just kind of alluded to the Carter Page situation where 702 data that was sitting there was used to spy on a member of Trump's campaign. That was an actual thing that happened. And the common wisdom by the people in the intelligence community is like, oh, there's nothing wrong with the law. It's just the way that the agencies are implementing the law. Well, bullshit. If this is even possible, then there's something wrong with the law itself. Ron Wyden, I know this article that we were talking about was about the Republicans, but Ron Wyden is a senator from Oregon who has been screaming about this for 20 years. So there's a bipartisan coalition of senators and representatives that have very good reason to want to require that if you want to search in this database, you get a fucking warrant. And I think that is a very basic thing. And I really like, actually on Twitter for the past few days, the people that are on this side of things are just making that their slogan. Get a warrant. And I think that's what needs to be done is they need to get a warrant. And this has been such a, like the fact that we're still having this conversation 20 years later is what's mind blowing to me. So yes,
by the ins and outs of it, and I had to stop watching this about an hour ago, so I don't know where we've landed, but the fight is, from Speaker Johnson's perspective, either they vote for the rule so they can then allow amendments that would affect FISA 702, that the people that are against it would be able to put amendments into it. But now it seems like, especially with Trump putting his thumb on the scale, that the rule won't even pass at all. And so,
well, there's different versions of bills that they're working on. Like, that's why I'm not really following this all that closely, because there's changes that are being demanded in the Senate, and then there's the House. And like, this is so far, like, even if I wanted to do an episode on this right now, I don't know which version of the bill that I would even read at this point. So yeah, they're not even, I mean, this actually expired months ago.
Yeah.
So during one of the continuing resolutions, because they didn't finish funding the government on time, during one of those, they just tacked on an extension. So it expires on the 19th of April. The most likely scenario is they just extend it again. They've done this over and over again for years. So I think this is a lot of drama that at the end of the day, it's just going to come to nothing. I think we're going to have the same exact program, just get extended because they're going to run out of time. But yeah, politically, it's a mess, but it's been a mess for 20 years. And it's not just the Republican Party. The Democrats are torn on this, too.
Yeah, that was Obama back in the day would rely on the Republicans to maintain wiretapping abilities. Like that was whoever. What tends to happen is
the Carter Page thing changed things for the Republicans.
Whoever is in charge tends to like to have a lot of power they can use. Like you tend to find that people like presidents that are very much in favor of states' rights once they're in power are like, nah, but not now. Not now.
We're trying to do things.
Yeah, we're getting things done. Mm-hmm. So on my end, kind of generally speaking, I'm kind of at the point now where I think that the FBI has had enough abuses over its long and illustrious history. We should probably just abolish it. So
The entire FBI.
yeah, I would
look at Vivek Ramaswamy over here.
Although for the record, the Heaton maneuver would not be to actually abolish it. The Heaton maneuver would be to defund it by 90% in order to avoid media scrutiny and just completely make it a rump state. So
I'm sure you'd be able to do that quietly. I'm sure nobody in DC would have anything to say.
No. I'm sure that there's lots of really wonderful people there, but there have been abuses in every decade it's existed that are sufficiently large that when you go, what if the government did this kind of thing, and people go, well, they would never do that. And the FBI's done some heinous shit over history and some very big political meddling up until now. So noting that I am very bearish on the FBI, I will play the role of devil's advocate on this episode with Section 702. I'm putting my devil's advocate on, devil's advocate hat on.
It's got two horns and it's plaid.
Yes, I've got my devil's advocate hat on. I look satanic. The ACLU has been talking about 702 for years. It's been talking about the many abuses with it that Jen pointed out here a moment ago. And that if we were going to maintain it at all, we would need to have serious reform that hemmed in any ability for abuse to occur. And looking at the bill, that's exactly what's happened. When you look at Turner's version out of the judiciary, that's exactly what's happened. So previously the law was this can only be used to spy on foreigners outside of the United States. But as you point out, Justin, that was abused by using backdoor provisions. So I'm going to spy on foreigners, but I might look for stuff about an American that's within their texts.
The way that Turner put it on the Sunday shows that he was on this week, sure, if you're talking to ISIS, then you're going to be caught. But otherwise, this has nothing to do with Americans whatsoever.
Right, and they abused it, and multiple times, right? But the provisions that Turner wants to put in, I think, do address a lot of these things. An agent has to use a specific justification for every search. They can't just do batch searches, which is what they were previously doing, where they're looking for ISIS or something, and they find 40,000 people and they can go into it.
That change was actually already made by the USA Freedom Act.
Okay. Yeah. The FBI agents received annual training. Great. They have to get an approval from an attorney before any batch job that will run more than 100 names. There are preventions in place to stop political appointees from approving database searches. Sensitive queries like those involving elected officials and political or media organizations need approval specifically from the deputy director of the FBI. The number of FBI...
Wait, hold on, that wasn't there before?
This was, to be clear, even with my devil's advocate hat on, they were playing fast and loose. There were lots of problems.
What the hell? So you didn't even have to go up the chain to spy on the media.
No, and like one of the other big issues that is being addressed with this is prohibit using political opposition research and media reports to secure a FISA order,
which was exactly what happened.
Like
with
they
Trump.
Looked at the Steele piss take Oppo research and went, well, somebody credible says that there's a piss tape of the president-elect or presidential candidate. Therefore, that is now forbidden. So,
Thank God.
At least looking at like what the ACLU has been advocating for, this addresses all this stuff. When I went to their website and looked at what is the ACLU worried about, this is it. So, could we not say take the win, civil libertarians, on this one? That this is what everybody has been talking about and wanted and now has received?
Here's my worry as a citizen. It's like playing whack-a-mole with a blindfold. Like, sure, these are things that we know because of extraordinarily famous and consequential examples that abuse happen. But we don't know the small things. We don't know exactly. So much of this happens behind the curtain. It's not like we get a gigantic sunshine dump at the end of the year where it's like, here was all the FISA data that we collected and here's exactly what happened. And so then we would have some concept of how this is being done on a regular basis. There's a lot of source bro trust me on this, and the solutions that are based on top of that I don't really trust.
Well,
like,
with
I don't
FISA,
trust.
there is oversight from FISC. What is that? Foreign
the
Intelligence.
rubber stamp court. Yep,
and Congress. Congress has oversight of it, and they've had audits over the last 2 years and have passed with flying colors since these abuses happened, right? So the last 2 years, these changes that have already started to be put in place seem to be doing their thing.
I don't feel that Congress feels that they have a dominion over this or over the Intelligence Committee.
When Ron Wyden says he's satisfied, then I will be satisfied, and he is far from satisfied. So
yeah, I do think that there is also a bias here from specifically people on the Intelligence Committee, and I don't necessarily think that they are bootlickers or rubber stampers per se, but I do think that if part of your job is getting a lot of information that then you are trying to do your best with, and then the people that are giving you this information that you find to be very, very important and possibly of life and death, they say, hey, we need these tools, you are predisposed to say, okay, like, I guess I know what I've seen from you. I know what the product is. So why would I take this away from you right now? But at the same time, I don't think that really leaves, it's like that meme of like the two people that want to have sex. And then it's like, but have you forgotten somebody? And Jesus is saying no on the other side. It's like, if it's the intelligence community in Congress, is there somebody that you forgot to ask? I don't know. The privacy of the citizens of the United States of America? Yeah, and so there should be a voice in there. Right now, there does seem to be a popular uprising from, as Jen points out, bipartisan, but it's more notable on the Republican side because they were reliable yes votes for so long. I think I want this machine kicked as hard as it can and see exactly what the FBI thinks is absolutely necessary when a massive amount of scrutiny comes onto it, and there is threats that it could, not exist. So,
well, and what we're asking for warrants is not that high of a hurdle for them to jump over, because as you mentioned, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, it's been nicknamed the rubber stamp court for a reason. There's very few FISA warrants that haven't been issued. And so even saying get a warrant, they're probably going to be approved, and most of the time they're secret. So it's like the fact that they're even pushing back against that is pretty wild. And all of this, like, they didn't have this spying power before 9/11, and they were able to do their job. Like, they did warn the Bush administration that 9/11 was happening. So the idea that, oh, without this, the whole world is going to, attack us and we won't know anything about terrorism, bullshit. They were able to do their job before 9/11, and they will be able to do it with warrants if they were.
Yeah, so the head of the FBI recently told Congress that asking for a warrant would effectively neutralize the program because the amount of lag time necessary to obtain one would eliminate the benefits of immediate surveillance gathering. So is there any threat that if something is truly imminent, that waiting for a FISA warrant would delay it enough to negate all of this?
I would highly recommend, I believe his name is Lawrence Krauss, but he wrote a great book, The Looming Tower. To me, it is the definitive tome on 9/11 and specifically the intelligence failures within the government. We did not have a problem with raw data. We had the entire picture. It was just that the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI hate each other, and nobody wanted the other one to know what they knew. And so by the end of it, we just were left sitting here with 3 pieces of the puzzle that told us everything that was going to happen and, all the consequences that came afterward. What we did on top of that was build an organization that theoretically was supposed to fix that problem. But then we also had all the Patriot Act stuff that led to these tools. So would it mitigate immediate intelligence gathering? Maybe.
Only on Americans. So again, if we're talking about ISIS or anyone from overseas, there is no scenario in which they can't tap them.
I'm not even arguing here. I thought that the current law was you could not, even before the Turner reforms, that you did not require a warrant to spy on a foreign national outside of the United States. You did require a warrant to spy on an American within the United States. Are the people that are calling for a warrant? They're not saying for foreigners outside of the United States.
Because foreigners have no Fourth Amendment rights.
Right. Okay. So this is just for Americans.
This is about whether or not you can use the loopholes that they have used to also spy on Americans basically without getting a warrant.
Yeah, like the incidental data that comes in. So it's like you're spying on, like you have friends in Scotland, so you're on the phone with them in Scotland. When they're tapping your Scottish friend's phone, they're also collecting stuff on you. They store that for 2 years for something completely unrelated. The FBI wants to look into you, so they go into that database and use that information that they've incidentally collected on you. We are saying get a warrant.
For and just for domestic research.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You know, even playing devil's advocate, I'm going to crumble on this one and acknowledge that the government will always abuse whatever power is given to it, even if it is appointed officials working on behalf of the average taxpayer, and therefore we should always be scrupulous of any government accumulated power.
Yeah. And like, even if you get the warrants, they're still allowed to be secret. They still go to the rubber stamp court. We're not asking for anything extreme here.
All right.
All right.
Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong is where you go if you want to support this program. On our bonus episode this week, we are talking about... Oh, this is great. This, because when I saw the headline, it read as a parody of a We're Not Wrong Patreon bonus episode. But I assure you, friends, it is real. It is rock solid real. AOC's war on AI porn. Believe that was the verbatim headline of the Rolling Stone article that was coordinated to roll out new legislation that she is pushing against deep faked pornography. You know how we love our AI porn on the Patreon. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. Because now we actually have legislation to talk about. This is an actual bill that is being put forward. In a novel initiative, ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC, and Fox News, the leading broadcast and cable news networks, have collectively drafted an open letter to President Joe Biden and former President Donald J. Trump, advocating for their participation in scheduled presidential debates before the November election. This unprecedented move underscores the importance of debates as a key aspect to the democratic process, reflecting a unified media effort to preserve a tradition that has been a staple of American political life since 1960 technically. The letter, still in draft stage and not yet public, emphasizes the debate's role in offering voters a direct comparison of the candidates' visions for the country's future. Now, President Biden has expressed reservations about the debates, pointing to concerns over the Commission on Presidential Debates' ability to enforce rules, particularly in light of Trump's previous debate conduct. Meanwhile, Trump has publicly committed to debating, despite his history of unpredictability regarding debate participation. The network's letter highlights the debate's historical significance in shaping voter opinion and rare opportunity they have to provide candidates direct engagement with the electorate that, and you know, ratings, advertising, ancillary halo effect, considering these are pretty much next to NFL football, the only thing that's guaranteed to rock a massive, massive ratings number in our modern world. Headmaster Heaton, should Biden and Trump debate?
No, I think these are stupid. I think these are dumb, and the point of presidential debates has largely exhausted itself. To your first point, Justin, yes, I think ratings are a significant reason that these networks have stepped together to defend democracy. They were quiet when Gary Johnson was knocked out of it. When the Commission on Presidential Debates went, oh shit, there's a possibility a third-party candidate might get a podium. Let's just change the rules and move the goalpost explicitly to knock out any threat to the duopoly. They were pretty quiet about that. Turns out they weren't really worried about that. They were more worried about the ratings. I think that if we're going to have presidential debates, we need to rethink how we're going to do them. If they're actually going to serve some sort of purpose, I don't think they serve a real good purpose anymore. I think at this point, presidential debates are really a high-intensity bumper sticker swap that are so over-rehearsed, over-practiced, and poll-tested that they're a kind of meme kabuki theater. I don't think that there's a huge benefit to them. There are things that I would like to see that would be a benefit. I would love it if CNN or Fox or somebody went, rather than just having a debate moderator, we're going to not tell you in advance what's going to happen. And we're going to have a guy come out and go, here's the scenario. You're the president. There's a barge coming towards the United States. It's not answering hails on the frequencies, and there's reason to suspect it might have radioactive material. How do you deal with this? What is your next step? And one presidential candidate comes up and says, I would immediately summon the Joint Chiefs to talk about it. And the other guy goes, I'd blow it out of the fucking water. I would like to see how their mind work. That would actually be useful to me as a voter to see, oh, this is a collegial advisor type person. George W. Bush wanted to have all his advisors come and give him options, and then he would select between them. Other management styles differ. I would love to see management styles. Right now, what it is I'm going to ask you a question, and then Justin, ask me any fucking question.
Where do you want to go to lunch after the show?
Justin, that's a great question. That's a good question. What makes good question is good education. And I have fought for the teachers of this great country since blah, blah, fucking blah. That's what these are. And they're drilling these night and day in preparation for it because it's not a debate. It's a meme swap. So unless they're going to actually change something, I don't think that these are valuable anymore. I think that they are pageantry.
So you don't think that there's any value in the American people seeing those two candidates on stage together?
I think that it is the net benefit.
Even if it is not what you would prefer, even if it is not as nutritious as you would like it, you don't think there's any value to the tradition whatsoever? Not
anymore. No, I like you. I know we've talked about.
When was the last good one?
The last good one?
Yeah.
God, I don't know.
Just so, because if it has fallen off, then there has to be some inflection point, some meridian line of when it was good.
I don't know, 80s, maybe 90s. I don't know.
Come on, the layup is 92.
92
with Perot.
Yeah,
because
okay,
that was the last time that you had.
Yeah,
you
I'll go with that.
Yeah,
like Neil Postman talks in Amusing Ourselves to Death, which you and I have spoken about previously, and I think is a really interesting book. Postman is writing a book in the 1980s, and he's writing a book in response to the first big push against television in the United States of TV makes you dumb. We've all heard this, right?
Yeah.
Postman has a really interesting thesis where he goes, TV doesn't make you dumb. Like sitcoms don't make you stupid. People understand sitcoms aren't real. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with sitcoms. But he goes, but here's what we need to keep our eye on. Again, this is in the mid-1980s. He goes, what we need to keep our eye on is if TV goes from treating entertaining things as entertaining to treating important things as entertaining. That's what we need to keep our eye on the ball on. Because if things like politics, civil discourse, debate, big issues, religion, things like that, if those are turned into some kind of newsertainment, we will train the American people to only care about that which is entertaining and to tune out when it ceases to be entertaining. And then he goes through
Mission accomplished.
He goes, when you look now, granted, this is in a time before television or even miniature golf, and everybody was bored as fuck, so take that as you will. But when Lincoln was debating against, help me out here, Douglas, they would have like 6-hour debates, right?
Yeah.
Granted, no one had anything to fucking do, so fine. But they would have 6-hour debates. Like there was an example when they were running for the Senate, not even for president. They're running for Senate. They had a 6-hour debate. Lincoln stands up and goes, look, I don't feel we've adequately covered these things. I'm going to suggest we all go get dinner and come back. And they did. Like they had like a 9-hour debate. That kind of thing, I think you'd really get to know the person. And
yeah, I think so.
And in the 80s, he goes, now, if we start treating this as a form of entertainment, we could foresee a situation where presidential debates aren't really an exchange of ideas. They're just pre-planned soundbite swaps, which would not be of use to the American people. I think that has come to pass. I think the period of time where the debates were novel and the presidential candidates were actually having to roll with something and think on their feet has passed. With the Nixon-Kennedy debate, I'm sure they prepped. I know Nixon had a background in debate. They didn't really quite know what to expect in a national environment. And I think there was a while where candidates were adjusting and we were actually seeing them think on their feet. I don't think that's happening anymore. I think that they're so coiffed and trained now that the only benefit to a debate between Biden and Trump is we see if Biden can handle it. That's it. And
I think there's some benefits to that.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to juice him so fucking much that it'll be fine.
He's going to be like the State of the Union.
State of the Union address. He's going to come in with
just red eyes, screaming,
pupils as big as a fucking quarter, and like punch a hole through the podium and like rip out the wires and shit. Like it'll be entertaining.
I'm just screaming in the mic like Henry Rollins, like just the cord wrapped around his bicep.
Yeah, and then he wins by body slamming Trump.
Hard disagree for the record.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to the 1960 debate. It's the same as it ever was. In fact, the only thing that was different was that Kennedy realized it was going to be a television-style debate when nobody realized what that was. Nixon was still trying to have somewhat of a conversation, and he got run over.
Yeah, Nixon
by
was...
a
hottie. Nixon, who I have this...
JFK is hot.
I have this soft spot for Nixon.
This is your Massachusetts weird
Nixon
DNA.
JFK, hold on. JFK versus Nixon?
JFK's hotter. For sure.
Thank you.
For sure.
It's just a fact.
For sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
His gigantic loaf of bread head.
But this is
so appealing.
This is the bit about Nixon I like. Is Nixon is this brilliant, brooding character. He was a piano. What do you call it?
Prodigy.
Prodigy. There's this virtuoso.
Yeah.
Like he wrote piano music.
Yep.
He'd play entire things at the White House. He was and he's the guy that would debate and go, well, okay, now if I bring up this bit logically, I would win. And the American people, he's thinking in terms of that. So I have whereas JFK's like, oh, I'll nod at this pot. I'll smile at this pot. Everyone will want to blow me. Yeah. I will win. And JFK, of course, fucking won.
Well, essentially that was it, is that Nixon began every statement by noting points of agreement, as you would in a college style debate,
right.
By noting points of agreement. So then you can restate your opinion and then also part by part take out the previous argument that you had said, okay, well, this is what we agree upon, this is what was wrong. And Kennedy realized, no, you just say what you want and you don't acknowledge the other person unless you have a direct way that you can totally blow up exactly what they said.
And that debate, by the way, I haven't watched all of it, but I watched the first half of it, and it's great because the moderator comes out and goes, today we'll just be discussing domestic policy. We're only discussing domestic policy today. Another debate will be on foreign policy. We'll kick it to you, JFK. What would you do different than the existing Eisenhower-Nixon administration? I'd be harder on communism than them.
Yeah.
I would beef up foreign policy. And then Nixon's like, I agree with everything my opponent said, but we're running a very good job and it's competent, and I promise 4% more competence if reelected.
Yeah.
And it's just them half an hour of them agreeing communism's bad, and all they're arguing about is who's better at fighting communists.
No,
That's it.
The biggest, Kimoy Matsu was the biggest thing at that debate, which is essentially now the Taiwan question. And JFK was anti-interventionalist and Nixon was pro-interventionalist. So he was more along the side of we would deploy troops and defend Kimoy Matsu. Kennedy was on the other side of that.
Okay. All right.
Which is valuable information that you got out of a debate.
Yeah. And which is why I think debates rule. Jen?
I agree with a lot of what you said, Andrew, but the idea of scrapping the debates because they're currently not well done, I think is not a great one. I think there's a lot of value in seeing the top candidates go head to head, even if it's just to see how they respond to that kind of, public pressure. Can they keep their cool? Can they remember who they are and what they're saying? There's value to seeing this. And I know that the Commission on Presidential Debates is very problematic. Since they have taken over the debates from the League of Women Voters, the qualifications for who gets to be on that stage are so dumb and so arbitrary. It is unfair that Gary Johnson and Jill Stein were not allowed on those stage, considering that they were on 85% of the ballots in this country. The Commission on Presidential Debates is a problem. The debate formats, the fact that the corporate media gets to decide the question, that's a problem. There's a lot of problems. But I still think that the election needs to have some kind of comparison of the two people on the same stage. I think it's important so that they're not just speaking in their own sound bites to the American people, but they have to respond to one another. So as frustrating as I find the debates for the same exact reasons that you do, I think we need to keep them as a requirement. I don't want to start the norm, which Trump has already started, that if you are one of the top people, you just don't have to talk to anybody else. I don't like the norms in our elections constantly being degraded now to the point that maybe from here on forward, if Biden doesn't debate, then debates are just done. I don't think that's good for our democracy at all.
The norm that Trump set was if you're ahead by 50% in the primaries, then you're going to wait for somebody to close the gap.
I still think
he also did that in 2016, back when it was still up in the air. He refused to do the Republican presidential
only
debates.
because he got mad at Roger Ailes because Roger Ailes stood up for
Megyn Kelly.
Yeah.
That was one
the
debate. It was one debate of 8 that he did not do.
And if it wasn't for the debates, I don't think that Trump would have gotten as far as he did, because one of the things that we all loved about him in the beginning of those debates is he called those monsters out to their faces on taking bribes, because he was the one that bribed him, and he said all the things that we were thinking, and it was really exciting. And that's one of the reasons that he got as far as he did. It was because of the debates. So I think that speaks a lot to how valuable the primary debates are. But I do think they're an essential part of our elections that just need to be better structured as opposed to scrapped entirely.
Can I ask, have either of you ever changed your opinion on a presidential candidate who you were going to vote for based on a presidential debate?
No, I don't like voting.
Okay. All right. Jen, have you ever, like, were you up in the air on Trump and Hillary in 2016 and then you watched the debate and went, I'll vote for Trump?
No, I didn't vote for Trump, but Hillary's warmongering in the debate made me really, I mean, not just in the debate, there was also things that she was saying in like the Atlantic Council and Council on Foreign Relations. Like I was really struggling with my vote in 2016, but her debate performance, especially when it came to foreign policy, it was a reason that I voted for Jill Stein.
So it pushed you third party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it did affect your vote.
It did, yeah.
Okay.
Partially. I mean, like I said, I did more research than that because I know, there was to this day, I still get people telling me it was somehow my fucking fault that Trump won because I didn't vote for Hillary, and I was very vocal about that. But
out of curiosity, what state were you voting in? California?
California.
Oh yeah, that was really on the edge there, as I recall. That one went for Trump, I think. Did they go for Trump?
California.
Fucking, I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016, and like, by the way, like, fucking left Fox Business a month after Trump got inaugurated because I didn't want to work at News Corp. Like, left a primetime television job with upward
I have
trajectory.
sacrificed more than you have.
I got fired from the highest paying job I've ever had a week after I said he should be impeached. Like, I have fucking put my wallet on the line and my career on the line multiple times, and I still get shit about voting for Gary Johnson in 2016. And people are like you're part. I was in New York. You know how New York voted? Voted for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
When I was in Virginia, I voted for Romney because I was in a swing state and I didn't want to vote for Gary Johnson then because it was on the edge, because like if I'd been in Oklahoma, would have voted for Gary Johnson then too.
My favorite bit of 2016 criticism was how many people called me a misogynist, and I was like, I voted for Jill Stein.
Yeah. Nice.
You didn't support the
Nice.
right woman.
Yeah, I didn't vote with her.
My favorite bit of 2016 bullshittery was like I was my roommates, who, by the way, when they found out I voted for Romney, almost kicked me out of the house. Like literally almost kicked me out of my home.
That's crazy.
Because they thought I was for like ending all abortion, and I like at the time I was like, I won't even go into it. But we were just kind of talking.
Romney's not even.
Let's
for that.
name names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I brought up like, well, the Republican primary that is happening in our midst now in 2015, I guess, is the most diverse group of candidates in American history. And they were like, what? And I was like, well, there's an Indian guy, a woman, a black guy, like they're like ethnically and gender wise, this is the most diverse group of candidates that have ever been in the country. And they were like, well, they don't count. Like Carly Fiorina's not a woman. Like literally, like she's pro-life. She doesn't count as a woman. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable as a man telling women whether they count as women or not. That does not.
You better
seem,
get on the same page.
Yeah, that does not seem like a.
We gotta shut these.
Like
up.
I don't really feel confident going, well, you're not a black person because because all black
The president
people,
of the United States did.
all black people have to think the same. They all have to think the same.
If you didn't vote for him, you ain't black.
Yeah.
Quote.
Yeah. What were we
Debates
talking
are
about?
great. I love debates. Debates are awesome.
What are people going to get out of it? Okay, so your points are met.
So
of
all right.
of moving forward when we have, spry 68-year-olds running for office again here in 2028 or whatever, that maybe the norm will have eroded. But in this debate, does anybody need to know anything about Trump or Biden they don't already know?
They do. They mostly need to know how they, even if it's just them reciting their own bumper stickers, how they recite it and whether or not they can even handle any kind of challenge and if they have any kind of response to something, because we have subdivided our culture so far, nobody really faces any kind of regular everyday pushback and forth. It's part of the reason why people like this show, is that at the very least, we are intellectually curious enough that even on things that we generally agree on, we will push back just to make sure whether or not our ideas are sound.
And to be a troll.
Well, I mean, you get a little song, little dance, little seltzer down your pants. You make everything, a little spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, which is why Postman's a fucking jack-off too.
I thought Jen was like getting mad at me for reading the Washington Post op-ed on FISA. I was like, does that count as trolling? No, Justin's a troll. For sure.
Justin's the troll.
No, yeah, well, because
he lives under a bridge.
it has to, yeah, and I charge money. So I do believe that there are certain stations of the cross that we have in our every 4-year elections. I think that those are in our modern culture 2 conventions. I would love if there were more that just signal it's time to start paying attention to things. And then 3 debates. these are the gathering points for which, in sequential order, we tend to start dialing in not freaks like us who actually get paid money to talk about this stuff all the time, but the general public just is alerted that this is something that needs to happen. Beyond that, I would love it if they were more collegial, but even them being forced to stand in a room together is a worthwhile thing to make them do. I don't believe that anything is gained if they are allowed to stand on their own edges of the culture and just say whatever they want.
Maybe
about the
okay.
other one.
You know, this is, hey listeners, this is something you can keep in your back pocket when you want to try and get Heaton to endorse something. Just make them sweat as a philosophy. Like what is going to be more irritating for politicians? Like that if you use that as you just make them jump over more hurdles. Maybe I'll be in favor of it.
I mean, but that's probably my biggest thing. And I do think that there's not a lot we have. We have a very young and volatile country. There's not a lot that we have that ties us back to the past. And television debates have been something that have been insanely popular since their advent. And we get to look back and say, hey, what was this like? How did Walter Mondale handle a question like this compared to Joe Biden? How did Donald Trump handle it compared to Gerald Ford? There's a lot of different.
Trump just yelled out "gay" and then moved forward.
Well, and this is a Trump debate, so it's going to be chaos. You never know what he's going to throw at Biden and how Biden's going to react to it. I want to see
and
that.
historically, Biden's been kind of a dick in debates. Like when he was with Paul Ryan, he's an asshole when because he's this very genial old dude when he's giving speeches, but when he's doing debates, he's a prick.
They're both pricks. It'll be really entertaining.
And also, Trump damaged his campaign in the first one. Like the first 15 minutes. I think it was a hot start, and I think he did fine. I think him being that aggressive, but he would not shut up, and it gave Joe Biden the opening to immediately cement the narrative that he was pushing forward, which is, I'm the steady hand on the wheel. This guy won't stop screaming. I will say, man, shut up, and then mumble whatever the hell he was going to mumble. But that was exactly what he wanted. He wanted Trump to be a chaos agent in hard times, in scary, dark times, and Trump walked right into that. Like, there are zero-sum strategies that play out in this, while I agree, a little bit more kabuki-ish than if we were to sit down in tweed elbow patch jackets and go through war drills.
I was sit down at the Royal Scots Club with my other 80-year-old friends.
Yes.
Say, how does this relate to David Hume?
But I do think that there is a worth.
Well, the other thing I'll bring up, and I simultaneously hate and like this fact, is we are freaks. Us, and by the way, you listening right now, we're all in the same mutant family.
Weird freaks.
Of people that are paying
weird, unlovable freaks.
Preternatural attention to politics. We are very much the odd people out. And by the way, I think that's a good thing. Like, we live in a republic. The whole purpose of having a republic and a limited government is that you don't have to be involved in government on a day-to-day basis. So you can fucking go to work and raise your kids and all those, like, all of that's fine. I don't have any problem with that at all. But it does mean that there are a lot of people that are showing up from our perspective very late to the game, where we've all made up our minds over who we're going to vote for long before the debates are happening, generally speaking. But there are a lot of people that they're tuning in right about then, where when we talk about, like, wow, the election cycle is 3 years now, if not 4 years now, like the presidential cycle starts a day after. That's not for most people. For most people, they're tuning in.
Labor Day. Traditionally
the day
Labor Day.
before when they fill out their ballots and they go, oh shit, I don't even know who half these people are. Like, that's the truth of so much of the politics in this country, is we just look at our sample ballot. Okay, I'm going to vote for these people, and then go to the. We waste a lot of time talking about this stuff. But we make money off of it. So.
I think it's great.
Of course.
For all the rest of our unlovable freaks, like, what else would they do? They just sit in the corner, throwing a rubber ball.
But I'm aware that we're not normal.
No, but also we're like any other niche. You know, there are people that care a lot about it, and I do think that we have a role to play in shaping some of this conversation, the conversation that will be eventually presented to the world at large going forward. For an element of society, there's a reason why people are talking about this 24/7. People always talked about it 24/7. It's just there's actually more of us now than there were before.
Yeah.
Before, people would look away uncomfortably when I was bringing up politics at some point in the middle of the cycle. Now people ask me about it. So it is more popular to do it, but it is still not the majority.
Or you've just filtered all the normies out of your life, and now we're all just surrounded by
Essentially.
freaks all
Also
the time.
Yeah, no, it's just me, David Koresh, in my compound saying, "Why does everybody think I'm God? So weird."
Okay, so I'm going to throw a question. You all make good points about the benefits of having these debates, but you also note that there are problems with them. On my end, I would love to have like basically a war game style debate where you're seeing the person think on their feet to solve a problem. That's what I would like to see. That way we get away from well-rehearsed, poll-tested memes and bumper stickers. What would you do to change the debates?
The stuff that I care about the most, I don't know if I would meaningfully change the debates from their current structure, because I do feel that it matters to be able to look back in the way that they were done in the past, because I think it does anchor both the American public and freaks like me who want to analyze the strategy of things like this to understand how it was done in the past and how it is doing now. If I might twist your question just a little bit and add something that would also be culturally mandatory to these campaigns, it would be something else from the Nixon-Kennedy campaign, one that ended extraordinarily close, and 2 weeks afterward, they met for lunch at the Breakers in Palm Beach. What I would love to add into
just to like touch base and be gentlemanly.
They were both in the area. There were people that connected them, but this is after, we had a big fight in Congress. There were, dare I say, alternate slates of electors at play. That it was ugly. It was really, really ugly. There were a lot of things that were being said on either side, and they met for lunch. And I think that would be something that, if they would agree to do that at the debate, if that would be a final question, is after all this, to show that the American public can move on. It can be private. We don't need cameras on it. We need cameras on them walking in. We need cameras on them walking out. They can sit there and not say a fucking word
dick
to
around
each
on
other
their phones
for an hour.
Yeah.
But they gotta go and just be in each other's presence.
They sit down
that's what I would want.
Can we just say real quick, man, Dick Gephardt's an asshole, right?
Yes.
Right. I fucking hate that guy. I like your kid. Or like something I learned from Raise the Dead, which is one of my all-time favorite podcasts, produced and hosted by Justin Robert Young. Barry Goldwater wanted to do a Lincoln Douglas style debate with JFK back in the '64 election. Like, he thought they would travel around in the same plane, and it would be
They both did.
They both wanted to do like an ideological, like, we're presenting the American people with these two distinct options, and we both believe in the process.
They wanted to tour together. Do I think that the Kennedys would have actually done it? Absolutely not. But they were about as ruthless as any campaigning organization ever. Do I believe that they agreed on that as people, that JFK and Barry Goldwater would have liked to do it? Yes, I do think that they were both nerds enough that I think that they had very separate visions of where the country should go, that they would be able to do it.
I'll add to your cultural norm. I would like to make a prerequisite. I would like it if whoever becomes president it's just expected in our country, whoever becomes president spends the first month in the state that they lost the worst by. And they just hang out in that state for a month.
Just get an Airbnb.
And like make it a point to meet people that really disagreed with them. I think we're living in a very polarized time. We're living in a time with a lot of echo chambers. We're living in a lot of gap between the Republican and Democratic reality, let alone the independent reality. Like having, where did Biden lose worst in last election?
I was trying to think of,
it could be Oklahoma.
Trump goes to the playroom of a polycule in Berkeley. And then Biden goes to a hunting lodge in Oklahoma.
Yeah, because Oklahoma, back between Romney and Obama, we voted for Reagan. Like, it was hard. I think it reddest state in the union. But I think there would be some benefit to that of actually having contact with the people that hate you, even if clearly you're going to think they're wrong. But just being exposed to it, maybe you will understand a reality that they have that you're not living, particularly if you've been a member of Congress for the last 50 years of your life and have been somewhat isolated from the experiences of people living in West Virginia, or alternately people that are living in California or whatever. I would like that.
Jen, how would you change the debates?
I think the qualifications are really important to me, because the fact that we're only at this point allowing Democrats and Republicans to debate, I think, is a national
One more
scandal.
option than North Korea.
Pretty much.
Good job, America. We're one better than Russia. One better than China. Good job. That's real democracy.
Yeah. I really don't like what the Commission on Presidential Debates has done. And the Commission on Presidential Debates exists because Democrats and Republicans got together and basically refused to participate in the League of Women Voters debates. And then they kind of created their own system.
They were a
which-
communist front, according to Walt Disney, League of Women Voters.
Wow.
I'm not even going to engage with that. But what I would like to see is that the qualifications for being on that stage has absolutely nothing to do with polls, because that's one of my main problems with the Commission on Presidential Debates. Is you have to get a certain amount in these fucking polls that who knows what they're asking or who they're asking it to. I think polls should play no role whatsoever, but instead ballot access.
Yeah.
I think if you are on the majority of ballots in the United States, your ass is on the stage. And then as for the structure of the debate itself, I don't like limiting these people to, 60-second answers and then being cut off by whatever idiot is moderating it. I want longer answers. These are really important questions. There's always nuance. I want them to have time to get into that nuance and to respond to each other, even if that means fewer questions, but more in-depth ones. Or maybe we can have them debate for more than 90 minutes. Like, we have movies that are longer than that. So, I would just... Yeah.
I think I'd
more in-depth,
I'd
I
tweak
think,
it
is
slightly. I would require you to have a theoretical electoral capacity for victory to qualify to go on the stage. So
That's fine. That makes sense,
yeah,
too.
but basically the same. This is not a lot of variance between.
Both Gary Johnson and Jill Stein had that.
Yeah.
And weren't allowed to
Right.
debate.
So like
I
if
think that's a scandal.
theoretically the American Garden Party is on like the ballot in 20 states and it's not enough where if they won all 20 of those states they could win, then that is okay. I'm okay with them not being on it. But yeah. I very much agree with you on that. I think ballot access is a big part of this. Yeah.
Would you be for? Let's try to, in the spirit of compromise. I'm representing the duopoly here. So that's not going to happen. We're not going to put these twitching freaks on stage with the actual people that America wants
with
to
the
see.
the jittering geriatric zombie characters.
Let's not. Come on, look, elder statesman.
Yeah, with the elder statesman. Yes, Trump.
right.
That elder statesman that is so universally respected, discriminated with, but respected by all parties. Just
This is me. This is me.
just
Doug
a
Duopoly
sturdy
speaking.
Jimmy Carter.
Hashtag criminal.
What do you say we made another debate for everybody else?
no.
No.
Jill Stein.
They're already doing
Cornel
that.
West.
No, they're
RFK.
they're already doing that. It's
Having
just
the
No, but
TV
we'll put
debates.
it on. We'll put it on TV. We'll make them feel real special. We'll give you Jake Tapper. Huh? Can I offer you a tapper?
if they
Can
were.
I interest you in a tapper?
I mean, I'd take the deal if they were going to actually put it on all the major
yeah,
networks
yeah,
at prime
no, we'll
time.
do it, we'll do
like
it,
that's
yeah.
better than now.
Yeah, prime time Saturday. But we can do a prime time.
All right, that sounds better than now, and also since I have literally nothing to negotiate with, I would be willing to take that deal. Yes.
I do. I believe that RFK should get some kind of national debate.
Where is he on ballot access at this time?
Yeah, I saw something yesterday. Is he actually going to be on the Libertarian? Because I saw this yesterday on Twitter, and I was like, Justin will know. Is that a real thing? I know we already discussed it, and we're not wrong. That's why.
Let's imagine that the Libertarians could get anything together ever. I don't
Makes
know.
the convention more fun.
The last thing that I heard was that the convention was barely being organized. That the person who was going to put it together had quit. So if whatever version of the convention happens and there's an opportunity if the RFK, if there's an RFK contingent within the Libertarian Party that is actually playing by the X's and O's rules of it, and they're actually trying to court people to secure their vote, then maybe. But I do know that the Mises Caucus, which is the loudest and I think most stout coalition in the wildling hordes that compromise the Libertarian Party, they are staunchly against it. So it essentially be some version of an anti-Mises caucus vote plus
I could
some
totally see
element
that. I don't know.
pragmatism.
I don't know anything about this. I don't know any. I have no developments since the last we spoke of this. But I could totally see a situation where, like, the Minnesota Libertarian Party decides that's going to be on their ballot in Minnesota, and so for some weird reason, whoever the Libertarian candidate will be on every other Libertarian ballot in the country, save Minnesota, or something like that. I could see something like that happening.
Do they vote? Because we've already bought
At the
plane
convention.
tickets. Exactly. We've bought plane tickets. It's 6 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Are they just choosing their candidate at the convention because
Yes.
primaries are done? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
they don't have real
Primaries.
primaries.
They just have
Okay.
one big convention caucus thing. Yeah.
So this is going to be a real shit show.
Yeah. Always is.
Without a
Always
doubt.
is,
Without a doubt. It is going to be an absolute, especially in DC. Oh, it's going to be
You
it's
had,
going to be a
like
shit
in
show.
20 I've never been to the national libertarian thing, but like in 2016 when Gary Johnson was pretty well established, everybody was like, okay, former governor, and he really wanted Bill Weld, who Justin will immediately say has low moral character. He wanted Bill Weld to be on there so they could have the two sane former Republican
Yeah.
like you had one guy that like conceded and gave Gary Johnson a replica dueling pistol, and Gary Johnson threw it away and he fished it out of the garbage and he hates him. And they weren't going to put Bill Weld on, and Gary Johnson had, because they elect the president and VP candidates separately. So he had to come out and be like what are you doing? Like give me this candidate, and like they were gonna I don't know. It'll be a shit show.
I'm excited.
I will say that we have a live show. We have a live show that weekend. We are going to be in DC. Tickets will go on sale next week because I have to set up the event, right? It is my fault the tickets are not on sale yet, but it's not a big house. I have a feeling that we are going to possibly sell it out instantly. None of us have ever done a live show, a live podcast since we've been doing these things in DC, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I haven't.
So there's, I think, a pent-up demand in a market that is naturally excited for us. So be ready. We will put that out. Keep an eye on all of our social media, because that Friday, 7 p.m.
Would that be the 24th?
24th.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. It's going to be a great show.
What's the location again? Anacostia?
I don't know. It's in Anacostia. I don't know if we should say it now, because then people will start going to them looking for tickets, and I still have to do a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's gonna be fun.
I'm excited.
It's gonna be really fun.
Yeah. I love DC.
Last debate thoughts. Anything else?
No.
I'd say Trankum.
Did you say what you would change? Yeah.
No, I said I would.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
make,
you'd have meat lunch. Sorry, you'd have meat
I would
lunch,
make
yeah.
I would make a question be, will you commit to this?
Yeah. Okay.
And then when they both break it, make them look like assholes. We're Not Wrong Pod at gmail.com. Please wear your goggles at all times past this point. We're Not Wrong Pod at gmail.com. Deep breath.
I know. This is when I would want to take a shot if I was still drinking. Like, okay, here we go.
Well, that was a mistake, writes. In a fit of insomnia, I thought I might listen to a trio of my favorite podcasters. It's often an effective way to relax and rest. Now, granted, I saw the podcast title referencing the World Central Kitchen tragedy. That's on me. I couldn't bring myself to pause this at any point, and consequently, I'm emailing you at 3 a.m. My mistake. I want to thank you for leaving the feed as raw as you did. Jen, I hope you don't get a flood of criticism that you are afraid of. I thought your position was eloquent, passionate, and very brave. Justin, I think you and Jen were a rare model of how to talk about incredibly charged things with respect and consideration.
Thank you. I actually did not get, not only not a wave, I didn't get any nasty messages whatsoever. It was 100% kind, even though most everyone said, like, I don't agree with you, or I don't totally agree with you. Like, people definitely put that disclaimer on their messages, but this audience was amazing. 100% kind.
You want to know
thank
whose
you.
audience is self-identifying and very, very, very aggressive? Those of Breaking Points and Rising. Boy, was there a common thread in both comments on YouTube as well as in email of really unhinged shit and then mentioning those two shows.
What do you mean?
Like the meanest emails to me specifically were people self-identifying as, the minor league MSNBC shows, Rising and Breaking Points.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Justin. Thank you for taking the bullets of the emails. I do appreciate it.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I wouldn't be able to handle it.
If people want to believe that news-flavored actors slapping around is something that is enough to write those kinds of emails, then you have larger fucking problems in your life.
I would like for people to be kind to Justin, just as a...
Fucking... I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with fucking me. Never forget that.
This is why they do this.
Good.
You're such a troll.
Downloads count all the same. I don't think my mom listens to this show, but all of you dipshits do.
Okay, there's no helping you.
We should all be crying, writes. Israel-Palestine conversations are all like this now, except between people with bumper sticker levels of depth and certainty, because it truly is difficult to see a better, near or even medium term. The lack of such visceral violence prior to October lulled me into thinking that eventually things would continue to improve slowly. You have something in common with the State Department. With improving living standards in Gaza and levels of violence well below war, down in the area of gang warfare. That illusion has been shattered, and I don't think it's possible to imagine a new equilibrium that is both good and stable.
I will weigh in as the congenital optimist of the group here. While I very much share your concern and skepticism, I will point out that there have been many similar things said about other regions of the globe in perpetuity. So if we were to go back to the year like 1900 and go, do you think Germany will be a democracy someday? People would go, no. It has been a hodgepodge collection of feudal states for 1,000 years, followed by a deeply, deeply militant monarchy. They just don't have it in them. It is inimical to the German people. Ditto Japan. Japan is a deeply feudal society. It will never be able to be a democratic regime. Both of them are pretty kick-ass democracies today. I think we might even have a point about this in the email, but like within my lifetime, they were fucking blowing shit up in Northern Ireland. And that had been going on a very long time. That was a conflict that predated the United States. And yet, despite having some of these same difficulties which are occurring in Gaza and in Israel, there was a pretty long and peaceful lull there that I think could continue. There's going to be a couple of speed bumps, but I think that could be something that smooths out.
This is a bit of a speed bump. This is an Evel Knievel size speed bump.
Right. All I'm saying is I think the idea the idea that we look at the Middle East, and I played into this last week too, and we go, it's always been this way, it will always be this way. If we go back to the Middle Ages and you wanted to go, where's the most liberal, pluralistic, tolerant society in the world? It was the Middle East. All of us would much rather have lived in the Ottoman Empire than anywhere in Europe during the Middle Ages, unless we were kings, and even then it'd probably suck. So like I am not fatalistic about this. I think it's very, very bad. I think it's probably going to be bad for a while, but I'm not fatalistic about it. And I hold on to hope that we could actually get to a point where there is peace in both Israel and the Middle East.
If we are hoping for the Ottoman Empire, then it's only 1,500 years to go. Maybe we can swing this big old pendulum. Let me explain to Yins the Israel-Palestine border issue, writes. Technically speaking, it's a fucking mess. But as a palate cleanser, how bonkers has the Steelers' offseason been? Firing Canada mid-season, now a big splashy QB trade? The only reasonable explanation is Tomlin getting into some of that Aaron Rodgers wacky tobacco. Huh?
Couldn't disagree more. Aaron Rodgers has been on the ball. Tomlin has been completely wrong, and it made total sense to fire Canada mid-season.
It did, actually. That's a good take.
Yeah.
I actually don't know what's going on with your quarterbacks. Is Pickett gone?
Yeah, traded. He demanded a trade.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Kenny quit it.
That's unfortunate because I really enjoyed Pickett to Pickens. That was so fun.
I say goodbye to bad rubbish. We don't need him.
I was definitely a Kenny Pickett truther, but if he requested a trade out, then that is what it is. And
Yeah,
they have two very, very cheap quarterbacks that could both be chucked the fuck out in a year's time if they suck.
Who do they have? Who'd they get
Russell
instead?
Wilson and Justin Fields.
Russell Wilson's going to the Steelers?
He is right now QB1.
Oh, God.
Mr. Unlimited. Hostages, writes. The hostages. They were mentioned, but I feel that their significance has been underplayed. In the hopes of not sounding condescending, there appears to be a fundamental difference in the American and Israeli perspective. The two main Israeli goals that were discussed in this segment were a land grab and defeating Hamas. Hostages were not factored in. However, I think that they need to be. A February poll exemplifies this, asking the Israeli public if they could only pick one, but either prefer to topple Hamas or return the hostages. 40% said topple Hamas, 32% said return the hostages, and 28% said that they couldn't answer.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the hostages, I do think that we discussed them quite a bit, especially at the end. I'm not really understanding this feedback.
Yeah, I think in terms of some of the duality of our points, I will say that in terms of Israeli conversations around this, that is far more of the pivot point than American conversations.
Well, even in their protests. I mean, Tel Aviv was on fire last weekend. Quite literally, there were fires in those protests. People are very angry about the hostages, and they should be. I mean, when it comes to the hostages, I don't know of anyone who doesn't want every single one of them to go home. God knows I want every single one of them to go home. But the callousness that the Israeli government has shown towards the lives of the hostages is so problematic. And when I'm advocating for the violence to stop in Gaza, I am also advocating for the hostages because they're there. So when the Israeli government, we know because of the hostages that have been released, we know that they're being they're being held in the tunnels. So when the Israeli government decides to bomb those tunnels, to flood those tunnels, they're also putting the hostages' lives in danger. When they indiscriminately shoot people, we know that 3 hostages were shot because of this. When they're bombing constantly and starving the entire population of Gaza, well, the hostages are in Gaza, they're being starved too. So by advocating for the level of violence to stop, we are advocating for the hostages because their safety is in danger too.
I would
at least for me.
Just add that I feel that Hamas has some culpability in
no
in
shit.
the hostages. Just so it's said, because this is where we get into trouble is when we skip over certain things. And so and we do know now Hamas has said that they have less alive hostages than they had previously said that they have. And what we don't know is whether or not they are slowly trying to dribble out that they have less hostages than they have initially said, or if they legitimately don't know how many hostages that they have. We don't know at what state Hamas is operating in or communicating in.
Or if they're telling the truth. I mean, these are not exactly who fucking knows, but
yeah,
I don't think I guess I don't understand the feedback because I don't think that we have been ignoring the hostages.
I don't think that his point was that we were ignoring them, but that it was not as present without being prejudicial based on this. I believe it was a Patreon commenter's name. It read particularly Israeli, so I don't know whether or not he is sending this from Israel or he just has an Israeli perspective on it. But I think we were having the conversation that we were having from our perspectives, which are American, and that an Israeli argument about this would be leading with hostage conversations in a different order than we got to them. I think that was his point.
Curious from Israelis if we have somebody in the audience, because I've just seen if I were. I try and put myself in the shoes of someone who is from Israel and just watching the way this government hasn't really prioritized the hostages. I know there are people protesting that, but even from October 7th, we know that, one of the houses, I can't remember which kibbutz it was in, but there was a group of hostages and there were Hamas terrorists in the house. And so the IDF fired from a tank into that house, blew up everyone. We know that they used the Hannibal Directive at the rave. We've seen the pictures of all of those burned out cars. It wasn't Hamas that had the helicopters that were firing. They were firing on these cars, killing hostages along with Hamas. Now, again, I blame Hamas for all of it because they started it that day. But I'm wondering if Israeli citizens feel like their government is very callous towards their lives, because it does seem like vengeance against Hamas has been prioritized over the hostages' lives the entire time. I know it makes me really angry.
Well, there was a hostage trade. There was there
Yeah,
there already
one-week
has been
ceasefire. Yeah, and they haven't had a ceasefire since. That was the one thing that got those hostages out, and there hasn't been a ceasefire since.
I mean, they're I don't know how much of the reporting you either believe or follow on this, but the State Department and Israel have said that it is not the Israelis for lack of upping the amount of prisoners that they are willing to release that has prevented a ceasefire, specifically the one most recently.
I mean, there's been a few things preventing a ceasefire, including that they're promising even if all of the hostages are released, that they're still going to continue the war and bombing and, the killing of people in Gaza. So I wouldn't make that deal either.
If you were
and then,
Hamas.
Yeah, I wouldn't make that deal if it was like, I'm going to give over
So Hamas
all
is
the hostages.
running-
If they give over, they're being told if they give over all the hostages, then the bombing continues after like 6 weeks. Why would they make that deal? And then also, Hamas has been demanding the whole time.
It's not what the State Department said, but
yeah, the state. Okay.
I mean,
but I also know that they are demanding that people be allowed to go back to their homes in North Gaza, and Israel is saying no to that as well. So there's a lot. There's a lot of nuances in those negotiations. But the fact is that the hostages were only released during that 1 week ceasefire, and there hasn't been one since. So that is the strategy that we know has gotten those people out of Gaza.
and that is part of the reason why there are tremendous protests.
Exactly. I know. And so I am curious, like, to hear maybe from this person again, like, is there anger towards the Israeli government from this person and from other Israelis? Or is it just us for not mentioning the hostages enough? I
think he's a listener who's engaging in civil debate.
Yeah, but I'm just curious, like, I would be really angry at my government if I was Israeli right now, because there's just been a callousness shown towards the lives of Israelis in their response to Hamas. It just seems to me that killing Hamas members has been prioritized over the hostages, and I would be angry and afraid if I was in that country.
Emotions and Debate writes, I listened to a few civil debate-themed shows, Open to Debate, Intelligence Squared, the Soho Forums, and We're Not Wrong. And I find that once a participant's fight or flight response has been activated, the conversation ceases to be a debate and devolves into something very difficult to listen to. I just don't think that a debate format can ever be a viable substitute for a participant who seeks activism, a bullhorn, a supportive friend, or psychotherapy.
Is this directed towards me? I don't understand this one either. Is it saying that our debate was shitty? Is it saying I'm too emotional? Like, what is this?
I think that they're saying that when it crosses a certain emotional threshold, that there is, I think, specifically to their writing, less of a nutritional or entertainment value, and that there's less of a constructive way that we can move forward.
I think we probably all have some degree of culpability in terms of that. There, I know I've gotten emotional and it manifests differently, but I've got it. What I would suggest to the listener, because I like all of the podcasts that you listen, and I love Gene Epstein, among others, I think we are doing something very different. I hope that you are getting content and information out of this, and we certainly strive to that. But I think part of what you're seeing with us that you're not going to get from a wonderful program like the Soho Forum is the Soho Forum is specifically setting up a debate format to have a clash of ideas that are fairly dispassionate, and the people can be kind of modular. They generally go hang out at Gene's place afterwards, which is great, but they don't have to. What you're seeing with us is how people who like each other can have an actual passionate conversation about something. And we're having a conversation which is different than a debate. So it is going to be more passionate, it is going to be more icky, but I think that it serves a beneficial purpose in that you're able to see, hopefully, a model of what people who really care about things can do when they engage with people that they love. And that's going to be different than a IQ square debate.
Thank you. I agree with that.
Please let Justin speak, writes, I wish Jen would just let Justin talk about this. He so rarely gives his opinions about things, and his take on the subject is really interesting from the little snippets here and there.
I think we were interrupting each other. I even caught myself in the middle of the episode and apologized to you. And I also was asking your opinion, so I'm apologizing again for interrupting you, but that's also just, you were interrupting me from the get, which I'm pretty sure the next person does too. So
couldn't get a word in edgewise. I had so much to say last episode,
dickhead.
And just every time I tried to get in, got steamrolled by these two. I mean, really, where are the let Heaton speak emails? That's what I want to know.
Please let Jen speak, writes, please, Justin, you keep cutting off Jen to interject your opinion. Everyone cuts each other off, but Justin, your consistency in cutting off of others is so much. What do you think about that?
It's a
Moving on. If the Irish can do it, right? Justin made the claim that the Palestine-Israel situation is intrinsically inescapable from the eternal retributions, and ever more so because it's in the Middle East. But Cillian Murphy is keeping the centuries-old vendetta alive against the British monarchy, and with the ascendant Sinn Féin in both Northern Ireland and the Republic, this intractable vicious cycle might come to an end in our lifetime. Might. If the Yahya Sinwar did hand himself over to the IDF tomorrow, we may see an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as far down the road as James Connolly and his 15 compatriots being executed. Let's pencil in sometime around 2132. Sounds good? Around that time, the Arab version of Cillian Murphy will make a subtle but pointed demonstration against the Reb of the to-be-built Third Temple of Jerusalem.
They got real complicated.
That's lore, baby.
Quick.
We got lore.
Really,
I have no idea what that is.
Whenever I'm like, hey, fucking do more than just a bumper sticker, be more like this motherfucker. This motherfucker had me Googling exactly what all this shit is. But essentially, he is saying that, or she, that we've had, as Andrew made mention, cycles of tremendous religious violence in many places in the world that has not precluded them from having some level of peace, albeit shaky at times. And certainly the fights between the Irish and the United Kingdom has been something that has continued on and on through pre-modernity to our modern times. And it is now probably at its most inert that it has been in hundreds and hundreds of years.
There are no doubt tensions going on, and there might be a rash of murders that I'm unaware of at any given time in Northern Ireland, but I think I'm on pretty solid ground saying it's a lot better in Northern Ireland now than it was in the 80s or the preceding 150 years.
Mad as Hell writes, I'm just so sick of Israel getting away with all these things that they do. I know they're surrounded by enemies on all sides, but enough genocide is enough. I ran that one just because it is full with things that I very much liked, up to and including mentioning Israel's #1 justification for everything, but then also saying enough genocide is enough, as if there's a level of genocide.
Like a little bit of genocide is okay.
Small genocide.
It's like pressure on a dam. You need a little bit of pressure.
Never Stop Jen writes, you are an inspiration to all the rest of us who are sometimes too afraid to express our opinions, just to our friends and family, much less to the open internet. I am starting to value more of the friends that I can debate and disagree civilly with and still laugh and be friends with afterward. Those are the real ones that you can build a deeper and more meaningful bond with. You guys are making me less scared of finding out who those people are in my life.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for saying that. And I definitely moved to Austin to be closer to these two. So, yeah.
Jen is Brave writes, I hope you will never be ashamed of showing your emotions when it comes to something that is so personal. Those of us who have listened to from the beginning remember the amazing conversations that you had in Europe the first months of the war in Ukraine. And your reports from your days working at the World Central Kitchen brought a wonderful perspective to something that as an American we only worry about because it affects where our government is spending our tax money. I have also worried for friends in the wake of these horrific attacks because I knew that many of them had been in harm's way. The sheltered snowflakes that have never experienced this kind of distress may give you grief for it, but we can only hope that they never experience that kind of fear for friends and loved ones.
Thank you.
We love Jen writes, I don't tend to agree with Jen on the Israeli conflict, but I'm grateful for her perspective that she's given me. The fact that it clearly matters to her and it's clearly distressing to her and she still wants to talk about it is admirable.
Thank you.
How many more
Jen is the opposite of cowardice.
I would like more.
I wanted to say that, Jen, specifically, you are so not a coward. Even just talking about this topic to the level of detail and nuance that the three of you do is an act of bravery when you have an open inbox. What you are is empathetic and very understandably emotionally rocked by a horrible situation.
Yes, Jen's terrific.
Thanks for understanding the...
Genocide Gerbs writes, largely secular Zionists wanted all of Palestine from day one. They were happy to start with an official 56% from the UN, and they have been tormenting the Palestinians ever since. No moral ambiguity at all, unless you are a Zionist or a Zionist bootlicker. Jen sees it clearly, and I'm sorry that I will not listen to a show that supports or even offers cover to Israel. That makes you complicit and part of the crime.
Does that mean our show, since you were offering a
Oh
secondary
no, he
perspective?
went on to make very clear that he's no longer supporting any of our work.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Sounds like we
Yeah.
can probably talk about him with impunity then, right?
sounds like yeah. Come
Fuck
on.
you, closed-minded guy that doesn't want to be exposed to other ideas. Go blow yourself.
Sounds like a bunch of fucking. These are the people. These are the rising breaking points people. These were that crowd.
And that's really unfortunate because I think there's value in what we did last week. I think there's value in debates like that. And I think there's value in seeing both sides. Like, I know since the very beginning, you, Justin, have stopped me from, completely going over the deep end. And like, you do help me remember that there are two sides to this, even though I think one side is behaving worse than the other.
Which one? I kind of zoned out last episode.
But yeah, I just think it's, there's value in this. So for people to be like, oh, I heard a thing I didn't like, fuck you all. I don't think that helps.
Yeah,
Wait, hold on, let's save. We have more bile. We can do it. We can do a wrap up of the bile emails. Genocide Gerbs 2, more genocide, right? If anyone writes in to criticize Jen for what she said in that episode, they are fucking cowards and morons. Like usual, she stated fact after indisputable fact, while you periodically chimed in to say that you don't see it that way, as if those are equally substantiated positions. It's more important to clarify that the evil within Zionism is not just limited to Netanyahu or his allies or the current regime. They might be the worst yet, but every regime since Israel's creation has slaughtered Palestinians and dared to call it self-defense. And the reason why regimes do so is that it's broadly popular with Israeli voters. At least with modern Russia, you can pin it all the psycho on one guy. The democracy, quote unquote, routine of voting to continue slaughtering and stealing land from their neighbors points to a much more holistically depraved society. To which I say, God, so close. So close. What do they have in common, emailer? What do they have in common? Come on, you almost got there. You almost got there. To just pure anti-Semitism. Like we were just so close that they all agree, but what do they have in common? Come on. I expected more from you. Genocide Gerbs 3, Turtles in Time writes, I don't have moral clarity? 12,000 plus children that have been murdered? What are we seeing is beyond anything justifiable. Imagine what we're not seeing. The torture we are hearing about, the glimpses of the kill zones.
He's not wrong.
Look, there's a lot that we're not seeing, up to and including the things that are happening in those tunnels that have left Hamas with less bargaining position because they killed their hostages. So
the hostages have been bombed, drowned, or starved. I mean, we don't know what happened to the hostages.
I mean, yeah, true. We don't know what happened to the hostages. That is true. Justin, emotionally abusive, writes, Justin, you can see him smiling as he needles Jen with comments designed to make more drama happen. And then when Jen finally has a break that we all know is coming when someone gets treated like that, Justin is back to telling her everything is fine. I'm not saying that their work relationship is abusive, but it definitely mirrors abusive relationships.
So I want to take this one, and Justin, I want you to shut up. No words.
Am I allowed to interject for funny purposes, or should I be quiet too?
No, I want you to
Okay,
shut
I'll
up
be quiet
too. So Justin absolutely needles me all of the time, and I genuinely enjoy it. I call him a troll because it's one of my favorite things about him. What happened to me, and I explained this to the boys, and I do have to say that you boys were right. I am going to cry on this show. I have cried on the show in the past. I will cry on the show in the future. And it's because it is a natural reaction that happens to me whenever I feel emotions that are slightly above or below average. And it's also a matter of my adrenaline. So what happens to me is that I will have emotionally charged conversations like we did, or I'll be in some kind of emergency situation. And in that situation, I am feeling fine. I am clear. I have no emotions. And I think you heard through the first half of that episode, I was fine. And then we were switching subjects. And when we switch subjects, I know that Justin's about to read a whole bunch of paragraphs that I've already read. And I knew Andrew hadn't talked for about 45 minutes.
Couldn't get an edge in.
Killing him. And so he was going to talk for a while. So I mentally checked out. And that was my mistake. And I started thinking about the emails. And I started thinking about the World Central Kitchen people. And I started to feel the emotions coming. And I was trying to pull myself out of it. Because once I go over the cliff, that's when I struggle to get it back together. And so Andrew noticed, he said something to me kind of under his breath, are you okay? And I said, yes, just keep going, because I was trying to keep it in. And it wasn't because Justin was being mean to me. It's because my adrenaline was crashing and I was about to go over the crying cliff. And then they stopped the show, and then I went over the cliff, and, you know, we all know what happened from there. This is what happens to me. It's a natural reaction. It's not just when I'm sad. It's also when I'm happy. I told my dad the other day, because I was embarrassed by crying on the show again, that I've never watched the movie How to Train Your Dragon. It's a cartoon without crying at the end because it moves me so much. Like when Chance and Sassy and Shadow come home at the end of Homeward Bound, I can't control myself. I am crying. It's just what happens to me. So in the future, dear audience, I know you guys care about me, but you have to understand that sometimes when I am emotional, that's just because how my body reacts. A lot of times I'm actually feeling okay, but I look like I'm a fucking mess. And it's not because I am feeling bullied, never by Andrew, because I don't think you know how to be a bully. But Justin is not a bully to me. He's actually one of the most supportive, wonderful friends I've ever had. He has acted as my therapist, especially in these last few months, in a way that I appreciate so much. He is the opposite of a bully. So just know that there is nothing abusive going on here, and those tears were not caused by Justin. They were caused by the horrors of the world, my connection to the World Central Kitchen. And this is just who I am. So, yeah, do not take my emotions ever as a reflection on my relationship with these two men, please.
I try not to bully Jen. What I like to do is kind of get her to question her overall rationality, like a slow boil, almost like I'm gaslighting, you know, like over a long period. So I have to play the Mr. Rogers card to really be effective at that and getting her to question her reality.
Yeah, every time I get upset, he's just like, "Are you on your period?"
Yep, that's what I do. Yep. Must be a full moon outside because Jen can't hold it together again.
I am very proud of this show that we can evoke from the audience that kind of feeling, because I think anybody who listens to this show on a regular basis understands that the underpinning of it is our mutual love and respect for each other. You know, there were a few, like, you know, I was too needly, but I think it was probably a Lifetime Achievement Award more than anything that was happening on that episode in particular. This is a special show. It has always been a special show since the moment before it was a show. People have really, really enjoyed our conversations because they see themselves in one of us. And in the last episode, it was either somebody who had more of my perspective, Jen's perspective, or Heaton's perspective, which was shutting the fuck up. And we got a bunch of those. We got a bunch of those that was something that people saw. And it matters a lot to me that people want to have that journey with this show, because I do think that that kind of raw emotion that transfers, that actually gets through the barrier of the technology and into your ears, and it actually rattles around in a way that matters to you, that's rare. You can't invent that. That either just exists or it doesn't. And yeah, so there's that.
And I'm proud, but I do want to say that, like, I don't read the emails, and I really appreciate that you do. And I love that people identify with me and want to protect me and stand up for me. I don't
there were some mean ones too. I just didn't put them in.
Well, thank you for that. But I don't like when people are mean to you on my behalf. I don't appreciate that. Like, you can have constructive criticism, but when people call you things like, did you call yourself Genocide Gerbs, or did other people call you that?
That was his college nickname.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Mine was the Jackhammer.
Oh, gross.
No, nobody called me Genocide Gerbs. I gave that nickname to myself to just kind of lump in all of the, like, super unhinged emails. Although they all did accuse me of genocide, for the record. Like,
Yeah.
they all did. They all did have me
genocide.
being complicit or defending genocide. So I did not invent that.
Yeah.
That was.
I think
Which is not your position, and if people are saying those things to you on my behalf, I don't like it, and I don't want it to continue.
I think a really good working norm when you're talking about any type of big political discussion or policy is you judge the policy on the outcome and not the intent. You judge the person on the intent and not the outcome. So like here a couple of years ago, I had on Bill Kristol to talk about how he believes that the world is much safer with America robustly deployed across the globe. I think he legitimately believes that. I think he believes he is making the world safer. I disagree with him. I think that he is making the world far more dangerous, but I'm not going to say he's a shitty person if he's truly trying to do something, if the intentions are good. I don't tend to agree with Bernie Sanders in terms of his economic outlook. I appreciate his intentions. I think he genuinely wants to help people. I'm going to vote against his policies because I think the outcomes contravened to his intentions. But when we're making personal emails to people, you should be looking at what are they trying to do. And no one here is advocating for genocide. Nobody here is advocating for dead children in the street or anything like that. The arguments are, how do we avoid these things we hate? And those are good arguments to have.
I appreciate the calls for civility. I will say I'm an internet realist. Whatever you want. Remember, you're locked in here with me. Not the other way around.
You know, there was this great.
See, he needles everyone. It's
I'm not listening.
just me.
I'm not
He's
listening to your
needling
podcast,
you.
dipshit.
I don't remember
Such
who
a
it was, but
needler.
there was such a great thing that some lady in podcasting or YouTube did a couple of years ago where she was getting lots of very sexist comments on her YouTube description, you know, of guys saying like, you know, I don't know, very, very like sexual, but like very mean comments. And so she just did a podcast where she would track those guys' moms down and call them and go, do you know what your son is saying about me? And like would just, it like kind of like give them some medicine there. I think that was very funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look.
So what I'm saying is, Justin, call these people's moms and ruin their life.
I'm not a snitch.
Call their spouses.
No, we can handle it. We can handle it. We can handle it one-on-one. No, me and the trolls. I mean, look, in all seriousness, this is an intensely emotional topic. And the issue that I have more with it is that it's harder and harder in something this emotional to even find common facts. That's what by far I find the most frustrating. And that's where I think when we got at our most at odds last week, from my perspective, that was it. Is that like there is like it's so hard to even build to a like let's understand this if we're kind of coming to it from situations that are just not even necessarily contradictory to each other, but just so focused on different elements of it that to even attempt a middle ground sounds like a what about, right? And that's the only thing that I would say coming out of this that I would very much encourage everybody is if you find yourself in that fugue state of fuck this person, they're totally outside of whatever, and you have the touchstones of me and Jen and old silent Andy over here,
Crazily doesn't tend to weigh in on stuff he doesn't know.
That hasn't stopped most of the internet. But just try to theory of mind where somebody else who sounds like me or sounds like Jen is coming from, even if what your reaction to it is like, well, they're not even focusing on the right things. Guess what? I think you're actually right. Like, we're not focused on the same facts. So do yourself a favor and just theory of mind for a little bit. Imagine you're talking to me. Imagine you're talking to Jen. Theory of mind where they're at. And if you can do that, I just think you're going to get, not only is your life going to be better, because these emotional things, they have a way of snowballing into places where you can say things that are, you know, hard to take back later. And this isn't about us. This is about just the world at large. But two, you're just going to be a better person to advocate for your cause if you are not ignoring what somebody else is saying or saying, well, that's irrelevant or that's outside of the purview. You're going to be better at advocating for your cause if you do, if you know it. That's all I would say.
And in that last episode, I'm really glad that we turned on the recording. Like, we were turned it back on pretty quick.
It was not long.
Seconds,
It was not long between.
And we didn't know what we were going to air or what we were going to talk about.
It was a few Jen sobs, and then we were back at it.
Yeah, I was like, record it. We don't have to air it, but let's just record this. I'm glad we went full circle because we were asking each other questions and not just yelling at each other, we found out that we weren't understanding each other. Like there was one point in particular where you clarified something with me and it became very clear that you were assuming that I was saying something that I very much was not. And I think the fact that we were asking each other questions and we're genuinely curious about the other person's perspective, because I know your intentions are good and you know my intentions are good. So like coming at it from that good faith and understanding each other better, I think it was a really productive conversation. And I think the asking of the questions was key to that.
Yes, I would agree.
I got a lot of Sudoku done last episode.
You fucking dickhead. Who both sides, the both siders brings us home. It really grinds my gears when I get accused of both sidesism because obviously the two parties aren't the same. They have very well-defined differences, but that doesn't mean that they don't have some of the same features, engage in some of the same bullshit, or share some of the same policy positions. And it feels like the moniker of both sides, or centrist, or moderate, or uses weapons to reinforce the status quo duopoly. The partisans focus on the difference and ignore the similarities, but I do the inverse, ? I believe that this was written more about our modern political system, but I wanted to end our emails with it because I very much believe that in this kind of topic, if you believe that there are two sides of it, I just genuinely ask you very seriously to spend more time talking about it and spend more time reading about it and spend more time listening to it, because there is a million shades of quote unquote in the middle of what has distillated to very, I think, gross, polar, weird opposites. And I think what we found at the end of our conversation was that if there was any element of the back and forth before that was implied either from the speaker or the listener that, well, you're representative of one of those, what we found is congratulations, we're not. Like there is a conversation to be had beyond that.
To backtrack a little bit to the guy who's going to quit listening to this show and all other shows, I just want to point. I think that's a really bad way of handling things. Like,
well, he's not listening. So.
Yeah, he's not listening. But I think most of the people that are listening are not in that camp.
He wishes he could. He so wishes he could.
And the thing is, you know, he's fucking listening. We're talking about him.
Yeah.
Again.
In that case, everything that Justin has previously just said about being able to theory of mind, I think is very important. Something else that I'll add here is I've been doing political media now, 10 or 15 years. I no longer have the goal of converting people to my position, whatever that position is. I think it's actually very rare to be able to argue anybody into your position. But what I can do, and what Jen can do, and what Justin can do, is make you a smarter version of what you already were going to be. So if we're having an argument about Gaza and Israel, minimum wage, something like that, right? Somebody who's not going to come over to whatever your position is can listen to that and go, I'm still 90% in favor of my team's solution, but there is this 10% thing we were doing that was stupid that I'm going to adjust for. And I'm happy with that. I would rather have people that I disagree with be the smartest version of their thing than come over to whatever I am. I'm happy to make you a smarter version of your thing, even if I'm an opposition character. But it does require you to encounter smart people with other ideas on a regular basis. So if you find that one of us has some odious position that is completely untenable, at least do yourself a favor and find some other vehicle to challenge your prerequisites on a regular basis, just to make sure you do not get intellectually lazy.
Yeah. Any last thoughts before we put a bow on this particular odyssey?
I have to be.
Okay. Here's something else that I will respond to a few things.
Now I'm going to drag it out.
A few things.
I'm going to drag it out now.
Yes, we are going to give this one a rest for a little bit. We're gonna give it a rest. If I see, you write about Tel Aviv, tell your mom. I don't care. We're gonna give it a rest for a little bit, and then we will go from there. We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg,
who also saw Totality in the Eclipse.
He did. Yeah.
I'm so happy. All four of us
and
did.
is a member of Hamas.
Didn't even. That's the thing. Everybody
says they're dicks.
That
He's
a
a great
dog
guy.
and pony
Will's
show
a great guy.
employee is a Hamas member. No one even asked me that.
Yeah.
No one even asked me that.
Is he not open-minded? There you go.
Sorry, Will.
On PX3 this week, from inside the halls of Congress, Matt Laszlo talks about the inside of a lot of the fights, the Marjorie Taylor Greene motion to vacate fight, and we get an update on the TikTok bill, which I had a lot of questions of because I don't quite know exactly how it has stalled because the House doesn't do anything fast, and they exploded this one off the launch pad. The president said he wants to sign it, and yet Chuck Schumer, who hates everything Chinese, doesn't want to put it to a vote when it might get 60. So
Good.
Go ahead and listen to that. Heaton.
Tom Merritt is joining me on the Political Orphanage this week.
Yay!
Great, the great Tom. He's a hack, but he's our hack. No, I invited Tom on. Tom is working on a book on technology, and I wanted to talk to him specifically about what am I getting wrong about AI. We've been having lots of awesome conversations about AI this last year. I do not know any of the foundational stuff. I went to an AI meetup here in Austin a month ago, and I thought it was going to be really fucking cool conversation about how, oh yeah, soon you'll be able to have, just say, make me a Star Trek episode. It was incomprehensible engineering jargon that very much reminded me I am a liberal arts guy that does not know science, engineering, or technology. And from far as I know, there are little demons that live on my phone that make pictures when I ask them to. And so I invited Tom on to go, I want you to correct the things that people are getting wrong about AI. How does this work? Can you explain the basics to me? What am I getting wrong about it? And then I did a bonus episode that was super fun that's accompanying it, where I found some of the weird and novel applications of AI that are going down right now. So you might have heard some of the crossover songs where Hank Williams will do Straight Outta Compton.
Yes.
That I found some of those big Elvis Presley singing I Like Big Butts and I Cannot Lie. Mm-hmm. I also found, and this is a novel application, there's a YouTube channel that takes speeches from evil dictators like Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler, runs them through an AI filter, and is able to produce a English version of their voice and cadence, so you can hear in his own words what Hitler sounded like, what Stalin sounded like. And then I played around with stuff on my own.
Fun for the whole family.
I got a AI voice cloning program and did a whole Jack Handey monologue that I read and then ran through the voice of Joe Biden. So it's very futuristic stuff on the Political Orphanage this week.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Jen.
So I think before the next episode of We're Not Wrong, I should be done with the next congressional dish, which is I am going through the government funding law and the defense authorization and figuring out how permissions and funding levels have changed for both Israel and Palestine. So if you haven't had enough of my bullshit yet, there's going to be more of it in the next week.
Why? Why would you even do? See, this is how you know that I care about her.
Sometimes I just
Well, after this, I have nothing else, so it's I can move on from that topic. But it is something that I want to know, and if we're researching it anyway, then
that'll wrap it up for us.
What about PX3
today? I already said that.
Yeah, you said it.
Matt Laszlo.
Oh, look at me not listening to you.
Yeah. Look at that.
Whoopsie daisy. I still have to pee. Can I go?
Yeah,
No, we got
stop me
we have
from
extra,
doing the
we've
outro.
got about 15 minutes of bonus
For
questions
Andrew
left.
Heaton and Jen Briney, I'm Justin Robert Young. We're not wrong. Bye.
I'm wearing astronaut underwear.